Starting July 29th, a single Canadian senior could see up to $1,875 land in their bank account in a single month. But here's the part nobody's warning you about. If you made one very common mistake earlier this year, that payment doesn't go up at all. It gets cut off completely. If you've got an OAS or GIS deposit coming your way, you need to hear this before that payment hits your account. So stick with me. And if you find this helpful, hit subscribe because this channel exists to tell you the things Service Canada buries in fine print nobody your age has the patience to read.
I know what it's like to open your bank statement every month and feel your stomach tighten a little before you even look at the number. You worked your whole life. You paid into this system for decades, through good jobs and bad ones, through raising kids and burying parents, and now you're supposed to live on whatever shows up on the last business day of the month. And half the time, you don't even know if that number is right. Is it what you're owed? Did they factor in the cost of living bump? Did something change that you weren't told about? You're not imagining it, and you're not alone in feeling like this system was built to be confusing on purpose. It wasn't built for you to easily understand. It was built by bureaucrats who assume you'll just accept whatever number lands in your account. Well, I don't accept that. And by the end of this video, neither will you.
Now, here's where it gets interesting, because July 29th isn't just another payment date. 3 separate things are happening on your account on that exact same day. And if you don't know all 3, you could be leaving real money on the table. Or worse, you could get blindsided by a payment that's smaller than you expected or missing altogether. I'm going to walk you through every piece of it, but I want you to understand something first, because it's the foundation everything else sits on top of, and it explains why your payment amount seems to shift around every few months like sand under your feet. Old Age Security, or OAS, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement, or GIS, aren't frozen numbers. 4 times a year, January, April, July, and October, the federal government looks at inflation, measured through something called the Consumer Price Index, and adjusts your payment to try to keep pace with rising costs. This July, that adjustment came in at 1.2%, which government officials are calling the largest quarterly bump of the year so far. For a senior aged 65 to 74 collecting the full pension, that pushes the monthly OAS payment up to somewhere around $751.97. If you're 75 or older, you're already getting a permanent 10% top-up that's been in place since 2022, so your payment climbs to somewhere around $827.17 a month. Now, I want you to really sit with that for a second, because here's the honest truth nobody in government will say out loud on camera. A 1.2% bump sounds nice, but if your rent went up 6% or your grocery bill climbed even more than that, this increase isn't keeping up with your real life. It's not nothing. But it's not the relief it's dressed up to look like either, and you deserve to know that going in, instead of getting your hopes up for a number that doesn't actually change your month.
But that's only piece 1. Here's where the real money is, and here's where most seniors get infused. If your income is low enough, you're not just getting OAS, you're also getting the Guaranteed Income Supplement stacked on top of it. And GIS is where that $1,875 figure comes from. A single senior with little to no other income, collecting both the maximum OAS and the maximum GIS together, could see a combined deposit of roughly $1,875.14 starting July 29th, up from around $1,852.90 the month before. That's real money. And if you're not sure whether you're getting the GIS portion you're entitled to, that's something worth checking today, not next year. Because here's a secret a lot of seniors never hear. GIS is not always automatic. Some people who qualify never even receive it because nobody told them to apply.
Now stay with me, because I promised you there's a mistake that can shut this whole thing down, and I haven't forgotten. But first, you need to understand the second thing happening on July 29th, because it's directly connected to that mistake, and it explains why your payment might be different from what you expect, even if you did everything right. July isn't just a quarterly cost of living adjustment month. It's also the annual reset date for GIS, and for 2 related programs called the Allowance and the Allowance for the Survivor, which support certain Canadians aged 60 to 64 whose spouse receives OAS or who have lost a spouse. Every July, Service Canada goes back and recalculates your GIS using your income from the previous tax year. That means the amount you get this July is based on what you earned in 2025, not what you're earning right now. If your 2025 income dropped compared to 2024, maybe you cut back your hours, maybe an investment stopped paying out, maybe you lost a part-time job, your GIS could actually increase this month. But if your 2025 income went up, even a little, your GIS could shrink, even while your base OAS pension is going up at the very same time. You could genuinely see one part of your payment rise and another part fall in the exact same deposit. And if nobody explains that to you, it looks like the government made a mistake, when really it's just a recalculation doing exactly what it's designed to do.
And here is the mistake I promised to tell you about. The one that isn't about how much money you earned, but about something far simpler and far more common. Service Canada calculates your GIS using your tax return. If you didn't file your 2025 taxes by the deadline this past April, your GIS payment can be paused entirely, starting with this very payment cycle. Not reduced, paused, stopped cold, sitting at zero until Service Canada receives that tax return and processes it. Think about that for a second. You could be perfectly, completely entitled to hundreds of dollars a month, money you have earned and deserve after a lifetime of work. And the only reason it stops showing up is a form that never got filed. Not because your income changed, not because a rule changed, because of paperwork. I don't know about you, but that makes me a little angry on your behalf. Because this isn't some obscure loophole. It's an incredibly common, easy to make mistake, especially if you've had health issues, if you're caring for a spouse, if you simply didn't realize your GIS depended on a tax filing you assumed was optional once you're retired and living on a fixed income.
So, if your payment on July 29th looks smaller than you expected, or if it's missing altogether, the very first thing to check, before you panic, before you assume the worst, is whether your 2025 tax return actually got filed and processed. If it didn't, the fix is straightforward. File it, even if it's late, even if you owe nothing, even if you think you don't need to because your income is low. Filing that return is what reactivates your payment. And once Service Canada processes it, your GIS typically gets restored, often with the missed amounts paid retroactively. That's the part nobody tells you up front. This isn't necessarily money lost forever. It's money on pause, waiting for one piece of paper.
Now, before I move on, there's one more thing hiding inside all of this that catches a surprising number of seniors off guard. So let me open this up for you too. Every July, alongside the cost of living bump and the GIS recalculation, the threshold for something called the OAS recovery tax also shifts. You might know this one by its nickname, the clawback. This is the rule that says if your net income climbs above a certain line, the government starts taking back a portion of your OAS pension, dollar by dollar, until eventually it can disappear altogether for higher earners. That threshold is moving this cycle from around $90,997 up to roughly $93,454 for the period running from July 2026 through June 2027. If your income sits anywhere close to that line, maybe because of a pension, an RRSP withdrawal, or investment income, this is worth knowing because crossing that threshold even by a little bit can start eating into a payment you've waited your whole working life to collect.
Here's something that might genuinely surprise you, especially if you've been widowed, separated, or if your marriage ended later in life. Many seniors have no idea that CPP includes something called credit splitting and survivor benefits, and thousands of eligible people never claim them simply because nobody ever explained they existed. If your spouse or common law partner passed away, or if your relationship ended after years together, you may be entitled to a portion of their CPP contributions or to ongoing survivor benefit payments that continue for the rest of your life. This isn't a favor from the government. It's money tied to contributions that were made during your relationship, and it belongs to you just as much as it belonged to them. If you've never looked into this, and you fall into either of those situations, it is worth a phone call to find out what you might be owed, because this is exactly the kind of benefit that quietly disappears simply because people don't know to ask. And if you're between 60 and 64, there's a program a lot of people your age have genuinely never heard of called the Allowance, along with a related one called the Allowance for the Survivor. These exist specifically for Canadians in that narrow age window, before OAS eligibility even begins, whose spouse receives OAS and GIS, or who have lost a spouse and meet the income requirements. If you're in that age range and living on a tight budget, this is worth checking into, because a lot of people simply assume nothing exists for them until they turn 65, when in fact, help might already be available. Now let's bring this all the way home, because here's what I really want you to walk away with today. You spent your entire working life contributing to this system, through payroll deductions you didn't get to choose, through years of showing up to jobs that weren't always easy, through raising families and paying taxes and doing everything you were supposed to do. This money isn't a handout. It isn't charity. It is yours, earned through decades of effort, and you deserve every single dollar of it, delivered accurately, on time, without you having to fight a bureaucracy to get what you're owed. The system is complicated by design, and Service Canada is not going to call you up and personally walk you through your GIS recalculation or remind you that your tax return is what keeps your payment flowing. That's exactly why channels like this one exist, because somebody needs to sit across the kitchen table from you and tell you the truth in plain language, without the jargon, without the fine print, without making you feel small for not already knowing this. So here's what I'm asking you to do. If your GIS payment looks off on July 29th, check your tax filing status first, before you assume the worst. If you're widowed or separated and you've never looked into CPP survivor benefits or credit splitting, make that call this week. And if you're 60 to 64 and struggling, look into the allowance programs, because help might already be sitting there waiting for you to claim it. Subscribe to this channel right now, because there is more coming. More rules, more thresholds, more little-known programs that affect your monthly income, and you deserve to hear about every single one of them before they cost you money instead of after. And please, share this video with your spouse, your sister, your neighbor down the street, anyone in your life who's counting on this money the way you are. You worked too hard for too long for this money to slip through the cracks over a piece of paperwork nobody told you mattered. Take care of yourself, take care of your finances, and I'll see you in the next one.